Welcome back to Breakfast Show, and now it's time to talk about violence against women and means of eradication of such phenomena. And joining us right now in the studio is radio journalist Mrs. Iqbal Youssef to shed more light on the topic. Welcome with us.
Good morning.
But first we're gonna be joined by our correspondent Dina Houeda, is at the D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation, which is taking place in Egypt under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Dina, do you hear me?
Yeah. I think that she will be having a live transmission, so we'll be moving to Dina.
Okay.
Under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Egypt is hosting the 5th edition of the Developing Islamic Countries. The 8 countries are Egypt, Malaysia, Turkey, Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria. The conference main aim is to promote and review corporate... The conference main aim is to promote common cooperation and investment opportunities. The conference has begun 5 minutes ago in the presence of Prime Minister Sharif Ismail, and it was inaugurated by Minister of Trade and Industry Tariq Qabil. Tariq Qabil has mentioned before that by Egypt hosting this conference, it's sending a powerful message to the whole world that Egypt is safe, we have security, stability and political and stability of economy. And also the conference had in the previous days 2 meetings. The meeting had negotiated the 7th governmental institutions. These meetings were talking about the small and medium sizes projects, which are very important for sustainable development, and it's very important to review the funding mechanism and the technical support for such projects. And previously they were talking about the 13 intensive workshops, which were iron and iron glass, ceramic and the petrochemicals, and they're very important for the common cooperation.
Well, this was Dina Houeda at the D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation, and now we are back with Mrs. Iqbal Youssef, a radio journalist, talking about the vital issue and main concern of our society, which is violence against women and girls. Hello, Mrs. Iqbal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, Mrs. Iqbal, I'd like to ask you, first of all, about the various types. There are a variety of types of violence against women. So would you tell us about the categories of violence against women?
Okay, first of all, there is oppression, gender oppression. Just because you're a woman, you don't really take your rights. Just because the gender, whether at work, at home, in a family, and so on. You won't accept the idea of having a woman manager, for instance. You won't accept that. You would never accept the idea of having a woman president, a speaker of the parliament. You won't accept that. Even in the members of the parliament here, though this has to do with the higher classes in the society, you still have them appointed and not elected. People don't tend to elect female members of parliament, not like male members of parliament.
But actually this year the number of female parliamentarians was quite high.
Elected or appointed?
Yeah, they were elected in addition to appointed.
Yes, exactly, but compare them to men. You'll find them far less. And they are mainly appointed. This has to do with the culture of the society as a whole. You have to work on it, especially in the media. In the drama, for instance, people are so influenced and affected by movies and drama. And so this should be tackled in a more serious way. I think, yes, that's it.
Okay, one of the things that are also facing the children now is harassment. Why the rate of harassment is now increased than before?
It has to do with the way you raise your children. And again, you'll find that the way of raising the boy is totally different from raising the girl. And this is one sort of violence against girls. Again, the gender a boy is entitled to do whatever. But the girl, no, she's not. So again, it has to do with your culture. And when you find mothers in certain society classes, I mean, you find them oppressed by the father, by the family in general, this affects the way the boy treats the mother and accordingly treats the girl. And then he goes out to the street bothering girls mainly. He would never do this with other boys. He would never offend boys, but they do tend to offend girls.
I'm talking mainly about the sexual harassment against children.
Because
Yes.
there are boys also sexually harassed, not only the girls.
This has, and again, this has to do with the way you raise them. You raise them the proper way to respect others, and in order to raise your children in a way to respect others, those responsible for raising this boy should be respected. The boy himself should look or have respectful looks to the mother. If not, then how would he respect her? And then how would he obey? How would he be convinced that what she's saying is correct?
Maybe we need
Never.
to implement more laws. Now we have a law against sexual harassment, but I feel that the law needs to be really implemented, because usually when you go to the police station, they tell you, oh, let's reconciliate, and they
So
just,
again, it's a vicious circle. It has to do with the culture again. Those who even would go and file a case, you'll find the police officer saying, come on, okay, we'll take it lightly, we'll do whatever, but no need to have it the proper way or the correct way, unfortunately. No, of course, this is wrong, and that's why we're saying media has to do a lot of work in this issue.
Okay, violence against women or bullying against women. We have the National Council for Women. What are the steps that this council should take to protect women? Of course, they are doing efforts, but definitely we need more, because there are too many, great number of women suffering from their husbands. They are being bitten
Yes.
every day by them, and
It is
abused
said that
and
1 out
everything.
of 3,
Yeah.
1 out of 3 is being beaten, yes? Well, I think to start with, they are doing a lot of work to increase awareness, but it's not enough, apparently it's not enough, especially in rural areas and remote villages. It's not enough at all, no. And this should be, again, supported by media coverage of this issue and the proper media tackling of the issue to help amend the policies and, again, amend and change the culture.
Now, from your field of expertise, in addition to what you're saying, raising the kids at home, and we mentioned also as well trying to implement the law, what other measures should we take to be able to eradicate violence against women? And actually it takes a variety of forms, not just the harassment. There is also, for instance, domestic violence, the early marriage, the FGM, so there are a lot on
Yes,
under
of
that
course,
title.
yes, and that's why we're saying you have to help change the remaining culture through the media, through state
Religious
policies.
institutions, do you think, would play a role? Do you think religious institutions might play a role?
Well, of course, okay. Well, of course. And again, in Islam, you'll find women, they enjoy an excellent status, but it's totally warded away, warded off. So again, of course, Al-Azhar and other institutions, they have to work on this. But mainly, I think that the state and the NGOs, they would be more effective at this stage at least.
How should we raise our children, especially boys, and what are the methods maybe instructions, how to deal with a girl? How can we raise them?
You raise them to expect others, whether girls or boys, when they do be raised in a way to shoulder their responsibilities the proper way, to understand others, to accept and respect others. You'll find a totally different manner in the street. And this is very important. I think this is step number one. Then, followed by step number two, implementing the law firmly, very firmly, and correctly.
Now, we're talking about families mainly, but we have millions of street children. These will have no parents to teach them to respect others. So actually, we need firmer measures, I believe.
NGOs, I think. NGOs, it was said at a certain stage that the armed forces will be taking street children and placing them in institutions to be properly handled. It was said, but nothing started yet, unfortunately. But of course, again, this has to do with NGOs, with councils, and with the state as well, because this cannot be settled on individual level. It's very difficult. You'll take one street girl, for instance, at home. You won't be allowed to, at least. So this requires a state policy.
The number of little girls, kids, are being raped and killed after this incident. And when they arrest the doer of this case, he is released after some time because he's a minor and he cannot be in prison for a long time or even executed to
Parents
death.
should be.
So do you believe that this was the cause of the increased number of girls are being raped nowadays?
And boys. Boys are also being raped. Mm-hmm. And the point is, if you cannot, if there is no law for these cases, there should be laws set for such cases, and the parents should be held responsible as well. They have to do with this, not just the perpetrator or the boy, whoever did such a thing. Parents as well, where were they? Why didn't they raise him the proper way? This, I think there should be some laws to force certain parents to properly raise the kids. If this is not done on individual level, if you have to put it as a law and enforce this law, why not?
Now, another form of violence is FGM, which is the female genital mutilation, which is still continuing in Egypt, although it's been outlawed. Now, how can we eliminate that or at least decrease it?
Increasing awareness, religious awareness. Here, I would say religious institutions, because it has to do with religion. They do it out of mistaken belief that this is in our faith. So here, to start with, and this is usually done in the simple social classes. So I think religious awareness here would do excellent work to stop this. And though they are trying, I cannot deny efforts being exerted by Al-Azhar and other clerics in this issue, but still I think it's not enough. They cannot reach such remote villages and places. So this has to do mainly with religion, yes.
What kind of law, from your own point of view, would stop the women and children violence and harassment?
Well, I would say they should be sentenced to life imprisonment and should be declared in public. Whatever the punishment, it should be declared in public. This would make others fear getting into such fuss.
Now,
So
another important issue is the early marriage, especially to in the countryside where the young girls are taken to doctors and then re-aged and then married off to a rich guy, whether Egyptian or from the Gulf or wherever. And then eventually it ends up as a type of slavery. And actually, that's really an important issue. How can we overcome that? Because that, I think, it doesn't need the awareness as much as the laws, do you think? Or?
Well, it has to do again with religion.
No, but the religion has nothing to do with it, because religion tells you when the lady reaches puberty, but these are
okay,
kids.
When she reaches puberty, she's married, okay, but she won't marry a 70-year-old rich guy, man, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, this has to do, first of all, with religion, and to make the parents, and mainly the fathers, understand their responsibility, their religious responsibility towards the girls they are responsible for.
It's mainly not religion, it's poverty that leads the parents to make the children marry at an early age.
And unawareness as well, not just
because
poverty.
Some of them are really under the age of puberty and they re-age them. So, so they actually break the law, and they are not following, abiding the religion as well.
Exactly, but they wouldn't care much about the law. But in these areas, in such poor areas, they are, again, as we've said before, the FGMs, they are done out of...
If they are changing the birth certificate, then they know that legally as well as religiously it's incorrect.
Yes. Okay.
So we cannot say that it's religious.
It's not only, no, I didn't say it's religious alone, but the religious urge there should be higher. Okay. You got what I mean.
Religiously, we should preach them.
Yes, exactly, to start with. Then again, you should enforce the laws. Those entitled of enforcing the laws, they should enforce it the proper way.
But you know, the poor people, when it gets to feeding their children and feeding their family, they forget about everything, religion and humanity and everything, and they go to another direction. So maybe, of course, they must have religion, but there are other things.
Some tend to make the girls or force the girls into work, not marriage, out of some sort of religious urge. They don't accept the idea of forcing the girl into marrying older men. But no, I think, well, of course, some sort of empowerment for these girls in a way, and helping the families as well. Financially, I mean, or finding some sort of reasonable jobs for the girls and the boys at these ages. I think this would be much better than forcing them into marriage.
Well, finally, I'd like to ask you, what about, because we've discussed FGM, we've discussed early marriage now, what about education itself? Because many girls, after, let's say, a certain stage, they get pulled out of school.
Yes, because of poverty, mainly because of poverty. So again, you help them either work, or it's again because of poverty. So just help them find decent jobs. That's it.
Well, Mrs. Iqbal, Youssef, radio journalist, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome once again to Breakfast Show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Russia.
Well, yeah. Well, by this we come to the end of this segment of Breakfast Show, and we will be back after the break. Actually, we will be wrapping up the episode because only a few minutes, So we will be wrapping up this episode, and I'd like to thank my colleague Dina Mamdouh. Thank you very much, Dina. Thank you. And please stay tuned for more coming up on Breakfast Show, as well as next tomorrow, and follow us, as well as more coming up on Nile TV International. Thank you very much, and goodbye.